So when we start doing decking, first off we want to sort of familiarize ourselves with the actual instructions, which again, you know, this is a hard build. This is our instructions. They are a bit terrible, a bit horrid. I've only just sort of started doing some decking, as you can see, and I've already found mistakes in the numbering and placements of this. So as I work through this, maybe at the end I'll do like an appendix sort of saying, you know, this decal should be going there and that decal should be going there, because already I have found that number 7 just here is supposed to be where number 5 goes, and number 5 is where number 7 is supposed to go. Yeah, I know it's a pain. Not very good on AMT's sort of quality control going on there. Which, by the way, just noticed. I just noticed earlier. This kit is put down as a skill level 2, which is, I'd say, them trying to say basically intermediate people. They've got 1, 2, and 3. This is not a skill level 2. This is like a skill 5, and they don't even do a 5. It's quite bad in that sense. So with decking, as we always do really when starting off, familiarize ourselves, we find what number we're going to do. Let's put down, say, decal 13, right, which always a good idea maybe to sort of orientate the model with the instructions, so we can see 13, that's there, so 13 is going to go just there. So then we go off and find number 13 on here, which, fingers crossed, it is actually number 13, which, you know what, I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's this one here, but they're saying E46 and E45. No, here it is, sorry, it's this one here, E13. Kind of looks the same. Basically what we can do here, we can use scissors, or I do like to just use a blade. I just find I can cut things out a lot nicer and better that way. So here's E13. It's always good to sort of maybe rotate the actual decal sheet in the light, and you can sort of see where the decals are, just in case you cut through like a see-through part of a decal. So always good to do that. With these ones as well, the actual numbering on here does sort of basically it just kind of disintegrates into lots of little black bits, and those black bits then go onto your decal and you get these little nasty black bits. So I would recommend, because these ones are again bad decals, that we cut the numbers off as well, because they're just gonna get in the way. Then, as always with decking, what we want to do is we want to hydrate them. So what we're going to do, nice set of tweezers here. I've got a bowl, right, it's got nice lukewarm water, it's not cold. Now I've already used these decals, and I say these decals, they crack like nobody's business. I've already had loads and loads of cracks. You will most likely get cracks. I'm going to probably get more cracks, because even though I'm dipping this into some nice lukewarm water, they are still going to crack. It's just these decals, they're just not that good of a set of decals. So you are going to have to play a bit of a jigsaw puzzle game when putting these down. But you know, we have these a nice dip in, so they've nicely really sort of soaked it all up, and then we're just going to place this down onto a non-absorbent surface like your cutting mat. And then what you want to do, you want to wait until this decal piece nicely freely moves off of our decal sheet. So this is nicely moving. As you can see, I can just touch this and it's not sort of pulling against me or anything like that. It's just floating nicely on there, and that's what you basically want. So we'll just put this to one side a second. Now these decals, again, they're really bad. They are kind of on the thick side, so we can't really use the nice decking solutions like Micro Solid Set, which work absolutely beautifully with something like Cartercraft decals or something. We need to use something more powerful. Now probably the most powerful decking solutions you can get is the Mr. Mark Setter and the Mr. Mark Softer. Right, these are a very sort of strong solution, hence why I decided to do about 5 or 6 gloss coats to prepare this for decking, because as much as they're not supposed to really react with your paintwork, you put enough of this down and it does start to have it can leave sort of marks where it's built up and it's kind of maybe left a little bit of a mark. So that's why I put a lot of gloss coats on this, because we're using this stuff. And not only that, this model you are going to need to plaster this on. You're going to have to put loads and loads on, and you're going to have to constantly keep putting it on. So you know, you do going to need a lot of this, and you want to make sure you're good and protected. So just to start off, we want to start off with the mark setter, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to paint this actually onto our model where this piece is going to go. Right, so it's going to be going around about here, so I'm just painting that on. Right, but what I'm also going to do, right, because this stuff, again, it's kind of strong, it can get a little bit sticky, a bit too quickly. I find it's not such a bad idea just to go out and get a paintbrush, right, with just some of the water on, and sort of paint that on as well. It sort of kind of dilutes it, maybe like a 50-50 mix of both our mark setter and water, just to allow this piece to be able to slide on. Because if you just use the setter, it is possible that it kind of starts to stick quite quickly, especially with some of the big pieces. They can stick quite quickly, so we can just simply slide that off. Nice, easy, simple, just like that. So maybe with your finger you might be able to sort of just maneuver this, right? And what I'm trying to do is get this in the right position, right? And as I can already feel, it's starting to tug against me a bit, so it's starting to stick a little bit. Alright, it's a bit of a shame. I have just noticed that the phaser array is a little bit of a different colour, which is a bit of a shame. I'll bring you in. Again, another little thing about these decals. Now this is a little hand drill. Just put a sewing needle in there. I find this is good just for fine tuning. You can sort of not stab at it so you're stabbing into the paintwork, but just enough to sort of pull the decal along. And what I'm trying to do is, it's a little hard to see where our little raised phaser array is. That's there, as you can see, it's on this side just there. I want to get that lined up with the printed bit of decal here to make sure the phaser arrays are, you know, it's going to go where the phaser array is, right? Because we don't want part of the phaser array to have the colour of a phase array and then it's at a different angle, because you know it's supposed to go nicely with the raised bits. And I'm thinking that does feel about right. I'm just going to take my time, make sure I get this the way I want it. Although sadly, you know, some areas don't quite line up, but that does seem to be okay there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with our Mr. Mark setter and just paint that on top as well, right? Because the whole point of this setter is so as it starts to soften up the decal, right? The whole way of getting these decals to go down nicely is they soften up, so then they start to conform to the model, and they wrinkle up a little bit, and then when they dry they sort of contract back together, and they should be nicely stuck down, all nicely going with all the nooks and crannies, and look like they're sprayed on. Also, they are like a bit of a glue at the same time, so this is why, you know, I've painted on a bit first, then I put the decal on top, so basically it's going to act like a glue, and then I'll put some more on top so as we can start softening up the decal. Now you want to, normally you could only leave that for maybe 30 seconds, it would pretty much work, but stubborn decals, probably maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe a bit more, to sort of let that soften up, and we'll move along with the next bit.